You're listening to Holy Health, the podcast that brings you the latest in health ideas and technology across the spectrum of fields. While ultimately our fate is up to God, how we get there is determined by us. As it says in Kohelet, there is nothing new under the sun. We get that everything can be found in Torah. Our goal is to empower you with knowledge that may help you make better lifestyle choices. This podcast has been brought to you by Musach Haguf Physical Therapy and Personal Training Studio. Our motto is fixing the past in order to build the future. You can find us on Instagram at Musach Haguf. Okay, guys, this is my intro take 2 because it wasn't recording. So this is kind of late at night for me. It's almost 11 o'clock at night, the night before I'm getting ready to go to Italy. My daughter, God willing, is playing. She's representing Israel on the national flag football team. So the whole family's going to Italy to watch her play. So this will come out Thursday when we're already there. And I just wanted to have it all ready for Avi to edit for this week. So I just wanted to give a quick little introduction to this week's topic, which is on algae, the health benefits of algae. And I would say this was recorded maybe 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago, something like that. And I've actually had a chance to try the products. Now, thankfully, I don't have a chronic disease and I feel pretty good in general. So I can't tell you like, oh my God, I feel so much better using this product. But I'm excited. I know that my daughter's more energetic. I'm excited to see the results of her blood test because she has really low iron, as you will hear on this episode. And, you know, the benefits of algae are so great. And even though this is not really considered a supplement, as you'll hear, the benefits of algae are actually so great that this can replace many of the supplements you're already taking. Mm-hmm. So there's not many things that I would necessarily recommend that I'm like, oh, this is the thing, like you should take this. But I believe this isn't overly expensive. Energy Bits has given us the discount code. Using the code Holy Health, you can get 20% off. So I'm a big believer. If it can't hurt and it can only help, it's always worth a try. You'll hear her go into great detail. It's really fascinating what these, I don't want to call them supplements, but what these things can do for you. And because the episode itself is close to about an hour, we kept the extra on the shorter side with my brother, Rabbi Shlomo Ben Zeev, but I loved what he had to say. You know, sometimes you can find a direct tie-in, and then that's always fascinating. And I just want to thank you guys. You know, we're coming towards the end of the year. I just want to thank you guys for continuing to listen, for sharing. Please continue to do so. We're at the beginning. We're on the cusp of a new year. And Bezrat Hashem, God willing, I hope that in this coming year, we will continue to grow and grow. I have many more episodes already recorded and many plans to come out. And please, you know, I know many of you like when I just send you the episode every week, but please do follow us on Spotify, on Apple, on YouTube, on all of them, any of them. And if any of the episodes really pertain to you or someone you know, please continue to share it on your Facebook, on your Instagram, tag me. I'd really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Shabbat Shalom. I'd like to thank the sponsor of this week's podcast, Luach Aim. We build websites that soar. You guys should totally go check out my new website, holyhealthpodcast.com, to get an idea of what Luach Aim could do for your business. Contact Sarah Lee at +1 845 596 0842. She's going to help you bring your ideas into a tangible business presentation, whether through graphic design alone or a whole new website. Use code Holy Health for a special discount. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Holy Health. My guest today is Catherine Arnston. Catherine is an expert in algae nutrition, a wellness thought leader, an experienced entrepreneur, and a board-certified health coach. Catherine's journey into the world of algae began in 2008 when her sister suffered a health crisis. Catherine left her 25-year corporate career to help her sister. This led her to algae. Catherine has spent the last 10 years researching algae, writing papers, giving presentations, and speaking on over 150 podcasts, explaining the benefits of algae. And in order to do this, she read thousands of scientific papers that confirmed algae's health benefits. Yet remarkably, none of this is known by consumers. And it's Catherine's vision to change this, and thus her company, Energy Bits, was born. Welcome.
Well, thank you. And in fact, I'm now up to 250 podcasts and 13 years of research, and I've spoken on 30 conferences and summits. So I've been busy.
Wow. You really have. You really have. And, it's interesting because I've heard a little bit over the years, like here and there, I heard things about like, a little bit of things about algae, but nothing major. First off, let me ask you, can you tell us about this health crisis of your sisters?
Yeah. So I'm actually Canadian by birth, although I've lived in Boston for over 30 years. And I mentioned the Canada part because that's where all my family still lives. And I have two sisters and who I'm very close to. And 15 years ago, my younger sister was diagnosed with breast cancer. Now, first of all, I want everybody to know that she completely healed, but it was quite traumatic, as anyone would be traumatized with a cancer diagnosis. So the good news is her oncologist was a woman and told her she should change her diet to an alkaline diet because it would help with her healing. They shouldn't tell her what an alkaline diet was, though. So the first call my sister made was to me. Not that I knew anything about nutrition. I was an MBA doing international business, but I love my sister and I'm a very good researcher. So I said, I have no idea, but I'll find out. It turned out to be a plant-based diet that was alkaline because of the chlorophyll and the phytonutrients that are alkaline. And the alkalinity was important because when your cells are slightly alkaline, it prevents cancer from growing. And also your blood needs to be slightly alkaline. So I researched for her what foods she should take, which ones she should eliminate. And in the process, I started learning about alkaline foods, which led me to algae, which is the most alkaline food in the world. And it turns out it's the most nutrient-dense food in the world. It's the most studied food in the world. There's 100,000 studies documenting some of the benefits that we're going to talk about today. Now, that's a big number, 100,000. That's not 10, that's not 100, that's not 1,000. I mean, you can't argue with 100,000 studies. It also turned out that algae has been endorsed by the United Nations and NASA for over 50 years as the answer to world hunger because it has the highest protein in the world. It has 3 times the amount of protein as steak. And it's been safely grown and used daily in Asia for almost 60 years. In Japan, they don't leave their house without taking chlorella algae. We're going to talk about 2 algae today. One is spirulina and the other one's chlorella. Mm-hmm. And it's a multi-billion-dollar agricultural crop. In Asia. It's as big as the beef industry is here. So when I read that it was so nutrient dense and documented in science, used safely for 60 years in Asia, and because it's comes in little tiny tablets, we grow it in fresh water. So that's the other thing we're going to tell you about. It's not from the ocean, although there is algae in the ocean. It's grown in fresh water. And I don't know if anybody's watching this on YouTube, but the algae comes in little tiny tablets, about the size of a baby aspirin, and you can swallow or chew them. So now you can have a handful of these algae tablets and get all the nourishment that you need for the entire day in seconds. No cooking, no cleaning, no work, no indigestion, no waste. It saves you time. It saves you money. We'll go into that in a minute. But so I realized that algae could be it was so nutrient dense and so effortless to take. And so many of our illnesses are because of a lack of nutrition and too many toxins. And we'll talk about how spirulina gives you the nourishment and chlorella pulls out the toxins. I thought, man, this is the answer for the future. This is what's going to help people get healthy again, be nourished again without any work. Because everybody here in North America, they don't want to work at anything. They need it to be simple and easy. So, I mean, if you can swallow water, you can get the nourishment you need in seconds. So I decided I would spend the rest of my life, and that was 13 years ago, telling the world about algae. And since then, I've read, as you mentioned, probably 3,000 PubMed articles. I've written about 500 different papers and materials. I'm doing everything I can to help the rest of the world understand what algae is, why we so desperately need it at this time in the world, and how easy it will make health and wellness seem. So that's why I'm here, and that's what I enjoy doing.
Okay, so I have so many questions now. Okay, so first of all, you talked about this as being something that could cure cancer. Why does no one know this? I mean, I understand that you're trying to spread this. This is part of you trying to spread this message in the world. But like, if that doctor knew, like, why don't people know this?
Well, I'm lucky that my sister went into her oncologist in Canada, because Canada doesn't seem to have the pharmaceutical industry doesn't have its daggers into the Canadian medical community as much as it does here in the United States. So that's number one. And also women tend to be a little bit more open to nutritional solutions, just the way it is. Mm-hmm. So, and I have to be careful because I have a big message to deliver and a lot of people to help. So I can't say, and I won't say, that algae will cure cancer. But what I can say is that there are nutrients found in algae, like phycocyanin, which is the blue pigment, and we're going to talk about that in more detail later on. It's proven, and you can go online and Google phycocyanin and cancer treatments, and you'll see that this blue pigment, only found in spirulina, has been proven scientifically to kill cancer cells. And it's in fact what the chemotherapy companies use and include in their treatments. But the reason why nobody knows about this, and they're not going to tell you, well, let's face it, cancer is a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's an industry, ladies and gentlemen. They give you enough. They don't want you to die, but they also don't want you to heal, because it makes millions of dollars for each patient for the pharmaceutical industry. But I want to help people prevent cancer, prevent heart disease. Those two diseases right off the bat are responsible for 75% of our deaths. And there are nutrients found in spirulina and chlorella, like spirulina only has the blue pigment, but there's another nutrient called, it's a mouthful, I apologize, it's just the way it is, superoxide dismutase, which is also known as SOD. It has also been proven to help prevent cancer. It also has been proven, SOD, not algae, but SOD, proven to prevent heart disease. There's 25,000 studies showing that SOD prevents heart disease. It also helps prevent things like Alzheimer's and brain disorders. So the issue is, and this is what is so funny when I started this company, the issue is, scientists like to talk to other scientists. They're so deep in their science speak, they don't know how to communicate these complex ideas in simple terms. And when I first started this journey and I was teaching myself all of this science, literally I kept telling the universe, find somebody else, because I don't know any science and I am completely self-taught, but I now realize I am the perfect person to help the world because I know what it feels like not to know the science. So in fact, I call myself a citizen scientist, and I invite everybody to consider themselves a citizen scientist, because the onus is on us. We need to be in control of our bodies, our destiny, because it's our responsibility. And just turning to the medical community and asking for a drug, first of all, the drug is only going to help with symptoms. It rarely clears up the problem. And you can empower yourself and bring back health if you listen to your body and give it things that are provided to us by Mother Nature. That's things like rest, movement, sleep, love, sun, and yes, algae, because it was the first life on Earth 4 billion years ago. It's all documented in science. Nobody knows why algae, it was a cyanobacteria, started growing, but it did. And you know what? I think there's something pretty spiritual about that. How you can only be the first life once, right?
Right.
And I got to tell you some cool stuff about what happened to that little cyanobacteria without killing the story.
Wait, can I, before you tell me that story, can you just talk a little bit about the two types of algae, just a little bit more about spirulina and chlorella?
Yes. Well, I'm going to back up even further because, as I mentioned, algae was the first life on Earth. And algae is everywhere, absolutely everywhere. There are two main types of algae. One is called macroalgae and the other one is called microalgae. Let me unpack that for you. So macroalgae is that big stringy stuff that washes up on shore, also known as seaweed. And it's called seaweed because it's only found in the sea. Now, it's good for you because it has lots of fiber and iodine because it's from the ocean, but it has virtually zero nutrition. I used to buy big bags of kelp noodles, because that's another name for seaweed. And it'd be a whole bag would have 5 calories in it because there was virtually no nutrition in it. Anyways, that's macroalgae. That's not what we're talking about today, but it is still good for you because of the fiber. We're talking about microalgae, and it's called micro because it's microscopic in size. It's so small you couldn't see it with your eye. In fact, I read somewhere that something like 1 million microalgae could fit on the head of a pin. Now, microalgae is everywhere, unlike macro, which is only in the sea. Microalgae is in the sea. It's also in the rivers, the lakes, the streams, the soil, your aquarium, pretty much everywhere. And there's tens of thousands of strains of microalgae. The two most common are blue-green and green. And of those two common blue, green, and green strains, there two are the ones that are harvested as food crops. And that's what we're talking about today. The blue-green strain that is harvested as a food crop is spirulina, and the green one is chlorella. I'm going to show you a picture of a spirulina farm and a chlorella farm. Now, a couple of things you need to know. So spirulina, number one, is a food. It is not a supplement. This is important because we are from nature and whole foods are from nature. And so when you take algae like ours, and we don't use high heat to dry it, so it's a raw food, your body will absorb all the nutrients far easier. So it's more bioavailable. So very efficient nutrition. Supplements, in contrast, are made with extracts, and they use high heat to blend them. So you lose a lot of the nutritional value because of the high heat. And also, these extracts don't exist like that in nature. So your body only absorbs a small percentage of them. But when you have algae, you are getting all of the nutrients. So number one, it's food. Number two, ours is grown in fresh water, not the ocean. So no toxins, no microtoxins, no any other toxins. And in fact, we're the only company I know that does third-party lab tests here in the United States because we sell our algae tablets through doctors' offices, at spas, biohacking centers. Because so we grow it in fresh water, air dry it without heat, which is very important when we come to the talk about mitochondria and some of those nutrients like phycocyanin. And then we press them into these little tablets that we call bits, because they are bits of food. Nothing, they're like a nut. And one tablet has the same nutrition as an entire plate of vegetables. That's how concentrated the nutrition is. Crazy, right? So if you don't like vegetables, or you don't live near a grocery store, or your kids won't eat them, or your husband won't eat them, or they give you gas, or they go bad too quickly, this is your answer. And I'm going to get to the difference between the two of them. But first, I want to underscore the importance of taking algae at this moment in time. Why? Because we are all nutrient deprived. Our soils are so damaged from being overcropped, the use of glyphosate. We grow crops far away, so they're harvested before they're ripe. So the nutrients and the enzymes don't get into the leaves or to the fruit. And by the time they make it to the grocery store and then ultimately to our plate, there's virtually no nutrition left there. You're getting fiber and calories, but not nutrients. And scientists are calling this the great nutrient collapse, because without proper nutrition, your body, your mitochondria, your brain, your organs, nothing will function properly. It's like, you can't expect your car to go without gas. You won't expect your iPhone to work without electricity. Your body is the same thing. You can't feed it endless amounts of processed foods or white things or things with sugar and expect it to perform for you. It just won't. And the other problem is we live in an era of too much toxicity. It doesn't matter whether it's glyphosate, pesticides, air pollution. We in Boston, we're getting lots of smoke from Canada, all the fires. So the average American or adult over 40 apparently now has 700 toxins in their bodies. And when you have that much toxic load, nothing works properly. They lodge into your cell structure and prevent nutrients from getting in or other toxins to get out. It just causes complete mayhem. So between the two algae, which we're going to talk about now because they address both of these issues, but they do it differently, the lack of nutrition and the excess of toxicity is what's causing us to have all these health issues at this moment in time. And the great answer and solution has been provided to us by Mother Nature, and it's spirulina and chlorella. So that's the backdrop to help you understand what these two algae do, because they do completely different things. Spirulina is known as a blue-green algae. We call ours energy bits, because the thing that spirulina is best known for is providing energy, mental energy, physical energy, and we're going to talk about it later, cellular energy. It feeds the mitochondria the nutrients they need to generate cellular energy, which is known as ATP. And that's ATP fuels everything in your body. So, and it also satisfies your hunger. So it's fantastic to have in the morning, the afternoon, before a workout. It also builds your skin and hair, also from the inside. And we found that women didn't like the packaging of the energy bits. So I designed a second one and called it beauty bits, but they're absolutely identical.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They're, because I started the company because of my sister. And so women's health has always been important. And when I found out, they just didn't like the packaging. And because it has more collagen than collagen powder, highest protein, and stops free radical damage of your skin. I mean, people are always commenting on my skin, and I'm quite a bit older than anyone ever thinks.
Do you mind, listen, most people don't watch this podcast on YouTube. Most people listen, but for people who do watch on YouTube, can you tell, I know how old you are because I heard, can you tell them how old you are?
Yeah, so I'll be turning 67 in a month. Well, 6 weeks. So, but
you don't look it. No.
I know, and I behave it. I don't think like it. And I was at a Dave Asprey's biohacking conference a couple of weeks ago, and I did this test with a colleague of mine at BrainTap, right. Great company. Yes. And they have this device where they can measure your biological age, and then they put the device on and show how your brain settles down and your biological age improves. But for me, they did my test. Then they said, go take some algae and come back in half an hour and we'll test you again. And in half an hour, with one and a half pouches of my spirulina tablets, the energy bits, I came back and they tested me, and my biological age dropped from 66 to 32 in half an hour. Oh my
gosh.
They couldn't believe it. The CEO did the test and he says, I've never seen anything like it. And this was before I even did their brain tap test. And I said, and I don't know if anybody has been reading the news, but there's so much news coverage about this guy in California who has spent the last 2 years trying to reduce his biological age. He's been spending $2 million a year. And after 2 years and $4 million, he's been able to reduce his age by 5 years.
Oh my gosh.
$4 million and 2 years, and he knocked off 5. I spent the equivalent of $8, waited half an hour, and knocked off 32 years of my biological age.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Right?
That's amazing.
When I tell you this stuff is amazing, and all we do, I mean, I take no credit for algae, it's Mother Nature, but what we do is we grow it so carefully and dry it so carefully and protect it so that you get the safest concentrated form of it. It knows what to do in your body. And when I tell you there's 25,000 studies that document how superoxide dismutase prevents heart disease, and that the scientific community knows that the blue pigment kills cancer cells. I mean, I tell people, instead of asking yourself, why would you take algae tablets? You should be asking yourself, why wouldn't you?
Right.
Right?
No, it seems, I mean, so obvious, and it's just so sad that people don't really seem to know this.
I know, but
especially since it sounds like it's more of a root cause, functional approach to healing.
Yeah. It's a total, we sell through functional medicine. So here's the problem. People don't know how their body works, and there's no operator manual provided to us. Right. We only know what our parents have taught us, or the school system teaches us, and they certainly don't teach you much about the real functionality of and the American pyramid of food is so upside down. They're still suggesting that you eat too many carbs. I mean, and I'm going to tell you, drop those carbs as fast as you can, because they cause so much free radical damage in your mitochondria. But anyways, it's my mission and it's my path to, now that I know so much about algae and I've seen the science to support the science that I've read, I'm just trying to help make it simpler for people so that they can trust me, try it. There's nothing like trying it for yourself. I mean, we sell our products on our website, energybits.com, but you can go to Amazon if you live in the United States and spend $6 and get a small little pouch for, with 30 tablets, and just give it a try. I mean, it's a very small investment to see a very pretty significant improvement in your brain and your energy levels, like instantly. So, and that's what spirulina does. Both of the algae, by the way, are ketogenic, which means they do not increase your glucose or decrease your ketones. And that's important because if you're diabetic, or if you're just if you're on a weight loss program, or you just want to stay as carb free as possible, this is your answer. Because you can do intermittent fasting, as I do, and not be hungry and still have energy and not interfere with your fast. And I didn't mention it, but there's only 1 calorie per tablet. So you could have 20 for lunch and have your hunger satisfied for a couple of hours, have 30, heck, and for 30 calories, right?
So I want to ask you a question, because you talked about them having the same nutrition as like a plate of vegetables. Does that include things like iron?
Absolutely. It has the highest concentration of iron in the world. It's biological, it's organic iron, which means it's from a plant. And so when you take organic iron, never take iron supplements, please, because you can get into a toxicity situation. And iron is a very slippery slope. Most people who are anemic and they get tested, and their doctors tell them that they have low iron, so they put them on iron supplements, which is the worst thing in the world, because reality is, when you are low in iron, it's circulating. You're low in circulating iron. What's happening is your iron is stuck in your cells. It should be moved out into your bloodstream. But so the problem isn't lack of iron. The problem is too much iron, and it's not getting out. And and the way to do that is to heal your mitochondria. And one of the things that helps move iron out is actually copper. So please, people who are getting blood tests, the other thing you can do if you feel that you have too much iron is to get rid of it by giving blood. That's a really great way to reduce. Dr. Mercola does that regularly. And women, when we're menstruating, of course, I'm way over that, but we get rid of a lot of excess blood through our younger years. So we may not have that problem, but then maybe you need iron from an organic form like algae, because then it will be absorbed correctly. This is the difference between getting your nutrients from food versus supplements. Any supplement you can either not absorb it or absorb too much of it. It's like one end of the continuum or the other. And algae, I call algae it's no drama. There's no drama with algae because it gives you steady energy. It's not, for spirulina, it's not a stimulant. So there's no rush or crash like you would get with sugar or caffeine or chemicals. It's just steady, and there's no drama. It just does what it needs to do. It just does everything in the background. If you took spirulina and just went about your day, you might not even notice it, except your mind will be more alert. You'll notice that you just aren't hungry. You aren't fatigued. It's like having a great night's sleep. You just feel fresh. That's what spirulina does for you in the moment. It only takes about 20 minutes. So people say, well, how long do I have to wait until I see any benefits? 20 minutes, and actually probably 5 if you eat it like I do, although I will admit most people do not like the flavor of spirulina. It's very chewy because it has 3 times the amount of protein as steak. It's 64% protein. It's also loaded with essential fatty acids. So it's an acquired taste. So don't worry if you swallow it. You can swallow it. You can grind it up and put it in a smoothie. But just get it into you, because it does amazing things in the moment for satisfying your hunger and giving you physical energy. We fuel NHL teams, Olympic teams, professional athletes, because they love how it gives them steady energy and focus and does not upset their stomach because there's no carbs, there's no sugar. Spirulina, I don't know if I mentioned, is a bacteria. It's called a cyanobacteria. This again was the first life on Earth. And the reason why that's important is because there is no cellulose wall. There is 0 fiber in spirulina, 0. And that's why it gets into your bloodstream so quickly, because there's nothing for your body to have to break down, no cellulose wall. And so it gets absorbed instantly, which allows there's 18 of the 20 aminos, including the 9 that your body can't make. So it's a complete protein. And so all of those aminos get absorbed quickly. The B vitamins, very high in B vitamins, what they do is they convert the glucose, the protein, into energy. And that's what gives you the immediacy of the energy. But then all those other nutrients like the superoxide dismutase and the glutathione get absorbed and move into the mitochondria, where they stop free radical damage so they can be more efficient in generating ATP, which is cellular energy. And that's what allows your blood to flow, your mind to think, your body to sleep, to move. And it just facilitates a better health and healing process as well. So very energizing, nourishing is how I describe spirulina.
And so it's got essential fatty acids in it, you're saying also?
Yes.
Like similar to what would be in, let's say, salmon or fish?
Well, it is a smaller number. And so there's a couple of things I want to point out. First of all, fish oil is pretty much rancid by the time you get it. It's just because it oxidizes. There's nothing you can do about it. So people are taking omega-3 fish oil to help with inflammation. But the trouble is when it's oxidized, it actually causes inflammation. And I point out, where do you think the fish get the omega-3 from? They get it from algae, right? So there's so much overfishing right now for the fish to get fish oil. It's really damaging the oceans. And then at the same time, you're getting rancid fish oil. And if you're vegan, you're out of luck. So I tell people, just save yourself the hassle, save the oceans, go straight to the original source, which is algae, which is where the fish get it from. And but it will be a smaller number, just like with all the supplements. I think I mentioned that, they use extracts, and supplement companies know that your body doesn't absorb extracts very well. So they put like 10 times the amount into the supplements, knowing that you're only going to absorb a certain percentage. Same with algae. Like, for example, there's only 5 grams of protein in the pouch of 30 tablets. And you think, well, that's not very much. However, it's all bioavailable within minutes. When you eat chicken, for example, or steak, doesn't matter, a fist size is about 50 grams of protein. But it could take 3 days for your body to break down that all that protein into individual aminos so that it can be absorbed, because your body can't. I have a chart I want to show you. Your body can't absorb protein. It has to absorb independent amino acids. So that could take 3 days. And if you don't have all the what's called the factors and cofactors, you may end up only absorbing 10% as aminos. So now that 50 grams of chicken, you end up absorbing 5 grams as aminos, which is exactly what you're going to get with algae, because you get the absorption is like immediate, and so it's bioavailable. The other option is what's called collagen, which are in peptides. Those are clusters of aminos, and they get absorbed faster than animal protein, but nothing beats the speed of absorption with algae, because all the aminos are individual. And by the way, algae is sustainable and eco-friendly, and both animal protein and collagen powder are made from are animal-based products. So if you're vegan, you're out of luck, and also it's not those aren't sustainable unless you're in regenerative agriculture. So the amount is smaller. Same with the DHA and the other omegas. But what I want to help people understand is that because algae is food, there's harmonies and synergies that occur between the different nutrients that you don't get when you dose with individual products, individual supplements. It's the difference between listening to an orchestra, which would be algae, or a soloist, which would be a supplement. You get all this richer nutrition, because everything kind of bounces off each other. And Mother Nature put the orchestra together herself. So she did it in with perfect amounts, because some things will help other nutrients get absorbed. Well, all that is facilitated by taking the algae, because it's got all the good stuff in there already for you. You don't have to concoct your own dosage amounts. It's all done for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, okay.
So that's spirulina, nourishing,
Okay.
energizing, and I talk about it being, really the best for mitochondria health, and we'll talk about it later. But the highest concentration of mitochondria are in your brain. So if brain health is your main focus, that's spirulina. Now I'll switch gears and talk a little bit about chlorella. It's a completely different algae, and yes, it does belong to the plant kingdom because it has fiber. It has a cellulose wall. In fact, it is the hardest fiber wall in the plant kingdom. And the good thing about that hard cell wall is it attaches to toxins. It chelates all the heavy metals, lead, mercury, radiation, aluminum. It will pull out any toxin of any kind: alcohol, lactic acid, pesticides, mold, spores, doesn't matter what it is. Chlorella has an ability to pull it out and identify it, attach to it, and pull it out. And it's mostly from that hard cell wall. But it's also partly because it has the highest concentration of an antioxidant called glutathione, which has been known to be the master antioxidant. Well, chlorella has the highest concentration in the world, and spirulina has the second highest. So that's also very detoxing. Now, the other claim to fame of chlorophyll or chlorella is it has the highest chlorophyll in the world. Spirulina has the highest protein. Chlorella has the highest chlorophyll. And again, I'm not sure if anybody's going to be watching this, but I'm showing you, and you can go online if you can't see this. I'm showing you the chemical composition of chlorophyll, which is virtually identical to the chemical composition of your hemoglobin. Chlorophyll builds your blood, full stop.
Okay, I need some now. For my 16-and-a-half-year-old, if I told you what her hemoglobin is right now, you would they don't understand how she plays football on the national flag football team, and they don't understand her hemoglobin is up from 7.3 to I think 8.7 right now.
Yeah.
She needs this.
Well,
okay. Well, we'll talk about that later, but
and,
yes.
you know, I sort of chuckle because chlorophyll water is having a big moment, or last year did, on TikTok, and everybody's taking chlorophyll water. And I say, why? You don't take chlorophyll water, because chlorella has 25 times more chlorophyll than chlorophyll water, number one.
Wow.
Number two, chlorella also has 60% protein, 40 vitamins and minerals, and the highest concentration of chlorophyll. When you take chlorophyll water, you're just getting chlorophyll, nothing else.
Right.
So you're cheating yourself by taking chlorophyll water when you could be taking chlorella algae, which will also build your immune system and pull out toxins way better than just plain old chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is very cleansing, and actually chlorophyll is a antibacterial. They've used it for centuries, topically on injuries. For centuries, whenever anybody was sick, they would give them liquid chlorophyll because it builds their blood just like a blood transfusion does. It's unbelievable what chlorophyll does. It's also very alkalining to the cell walls. Speaking of which, chlorophyll, I think most people don't know this. It took me a while to figure this out. Chlorophyll is a fat-based pigment. We didn't talk about the blue pigment in spirulina, which is called phycocyanin, and it is a water-based pigment. Okay. The reason why I want you to know about the chlorophyll being a fat-based pigment relates back to your question earlier about the omega-3s. Your body, all your cells are made of fats. The fancy word is lipids. And you need healthy fats like A and D and omega-3 to ensure that those cell walls stay permeable. And when they're permeable, nutrients can get in and toxins can get out. Well, chlorophyll behaves just like them because it is a fat-based pigment. So it's just as healing to the cell walls. And the analogy I give people is, when you have dirty windows, you can't see out and sunlight can't get in. And so when you think of chlorophyll, because it's so healing to your cell walls, it's sort of like window washing your cell walls so that now the nutrients can get in and the toxins can get out. And lots of people, when they do cleanses, they're using lots of juices. Well, part of what's going on is the chlorophyll is getting in there and doing a scrub-a-dub on your cell walls. So chlorella, it's got that hard cell wall that pulls out toxins. It's got the highest chlorophyll, which is very cleansing and builds your cell walls. And chlorophyll, as I said, kills bacteria, and it has fiber. So it feeds the gut biome, and it has all the nutrients that your immune system needs. And your immune system, by the way, is predominantly found, 80% of it is in your gut. So chlorella in general is a wellness algae, a detoxing algae, a cleansing and repair algae. And because your body goes through a detox repair cycle when you are sleeping, we generally recommend chlorella, and we call ours recovery bits because it helps you recover from your day. We recommend it before bed. Now, I mention that because you can take it any time of day. I do. I have them all day long. I have breakfast, lunch, dinner, at night, but definitely before bed, because first of all, it will help you sleep. It has the highest amount of tryptophan in the world, which is a precursor to melatonin and serotonin. Melatonin is what helps you sleep, and as you get older, you have less of that. So it will help with your sleep cycle. But it will also, while you're getting your beauty rest, it's pulling out the aluminum from your brain. It's pulling all the toxins out of your body. It will stimulate, the chlorophyll also stimulates what's called peristalsis, which is a bowel movement. So you'll have a good trip to the bathroom in the morning. And if you'd had any wine or any alcohol, it will pull those out. And in both cases, spirulina and chlorella, in general, we suggest 10 tablets of the spirulina in the morning. More is better. If you can take 20 or 30, God, knock yourself out. And for chlorella, 10 tablets will give you the wellness benefits, the chlorophyll and all the cleansing, but it will not be enough to pull out toxins. You need the full 20 or 30 tablets for detox, to pull out the wine, to pull out the lactic acid, to pull out the heavy metals. And if you don't have enough, it will pull them out, but it won't chelate them and pull them all the way out of your body. So the good news is chlorella actually tastes pretty good. So I invite you to try chewing it. They taste delicious. my favorite is there's a brand of salt and vinegar pistachio nuts that I'm using right now to eat mine, but they taste great with any nut, macadamia nuts.
You eat the nuts and you eat the chlorella pills together with them?
Yeah.
Oh,
we're gonna do a trail mix of the two of them maybe next year. But
good, make that kosher also.
Yeah,
because you already told me that they're all these are kosher. All of these,
everything is kosher. We're kosher certified, KSA. So it's great for everybody. Now, I know it's a lot of information to try to absorb, so I've come up with a few analogies to help you. They're kind of fun to remember what they are.
We love analogies.
So, and I speak a lot at conferences, and I stay at all these beautiful hotels, and it dawned on me that spirulina, because it's so nourishing and energizing, it's sort of like at a hotel, it's like having room service. Room service gives you what you need, brings you the nourishment that you need for the day, gets you out the door, boom. So spirulina, think of it as room service. Chlorella, which pulls out all the junk in your trunk and is very cleansing, and is like housekeeping, right? You're at a hotel, they clean up the room for you, you come back, everything looks great. So think of spirulina as room service and chlorella as housekeeping. And if that doesn't do it for you, think of spirulina, which again we call energy bits, as brain food, because it really feeds your mitochondria, and that's where the highest amount are. So spirulina, brain food. No coincidence, by the way, that salmon and all these high omega-3 fishes are also called brain food. Ta-da! See the connection? Are you starting to see the connection? Yep. So spirulina, brain food. Chlorella, which we call recovery bits, because it heals your gut and your immune system, is really a gut algae, a wellness healing algae. So it works from the bottom up, and chlorella, and so it builds, so it's immune builder. Chlorella, spirulina, top down, chlorella, bottoms up. So
those are good. I like them. And I do also well with analogies, because it just makes things so much easier to understand.
Yeah. And the chlorella, I tell people, you know what? We take a shower on the outside every day. Taking chlorella is like giving your body a shower from the inside. And you know, if you don't get those toxins out, they're just the terrible thing is they just function. They keep going, they keep causing damage, and you're not aware of it. Very often, and at the mitochondria level, there'll be inflammation going on, and the symptoms sometimes don't show up for 10 years. But after 10 years, now you have to unravel all the damage that's gone on, and that's sort of and it's never fun. Your whole life now is spent going to the doctors, taking medications. It's just getting back on your feet. And so I really want to help people never have to get that diagnosis. But if you do, just keep in mind that our bodies are constantly regenerating. We have over 30 trillion cells in our bodies, and every day 30 trillion die and 30 trillion more grow. So when you give your body spirulina and chlorella, the new cells that are being formed will be healthier. They will be able to heal you better. They will protect you better, because they have what they need to do their job for you. Because your mitochondria, and we'll get to that next, I hope, are on your side. But they don't have any hands to reach the food. They take the food that you eat and try their best to convert it into energy for you, called ATP. But if you don't give them the correct formula, which is, whole foods, mostly plant if possible, but as little carbs as possible, processed carbs, it's up to you to feed your mitochondria what they need. I tell people I never eat alone. I always eat with my mitochondria. Mighty mitochondria.
Right. Okay. Wow. So do you want to talk a little bit more? Can you explain to people who may not know what mitochondria is? I mean, I know you talked a little bit about it, but I feel like, I like to get everything down to as basic and as understandable a level as possible for people.
Yeah. So everything we do, whether it's walking, talking, sleeping, breathing, and the things we're not conscious of, heartbeats, lymphatic system, those are all powered by what's called cellular energy. And the format of cellular energy is called ATP. And so what happens, you eat food and your body converts it into glucose, and that glucose gets into your cells, and inside your cells are these little things called mitochondria, and they take the glucose, and there's a system inside the mitochondria. I know it's a little geeky. It's called the electron transport chain. And what those they're basically molecules. They take the glucose and convert it into these, it goes through 4 stages, and through that process then generates ATP. So it's quite complicated. The analogy I give to people is if you've ever seen a relay race, so there's multiple racers and they have a baton and they run a certain distance and then they pass the baton to the next person and that person runs the next distance, blah, blah, blah. So in your mitochondria, it's the equivalent of a baton race, except instead of passing a baton, these little stations transport electrons. That's why it's called the electron transport chain. Mm-hmm. But here's the problem. When you get damaged mitochondria, those little relay stations get further and further and further apart. So it's harder and harder and harder for them to pass the electrons efficiently. So they get dropped. And that's when they're dropped, they cause free radicals. And those free radicals damage the mitochondria. Now, the good news or bad news, whatever it is, it's just news. You probably don't know this, but your mitochondria have their own DNA. We have our regular DNA. There's 22,000 of those. And your mitochondria have their own DNA. And there's only 37 of them. And you think, well, how important can 37 DNA be? Well, those 37 control all of your other 22,000 DNA, and they control everything that goes on in the cell and how the cells communicate. So when they get damaged, they're sort of like, think of your mitochondria DNA like air controllers at an airport. Air controllers control everything. Planes come in, planes go out. And if the air controllers aren't on their game, or if they got damaged, planes would crash, right? This is exactly what's happening in your mitochondria. When you aren't giving them what they need to function properly, they get damaged, just like your air controllers. And so that's when they get damaged, they either die or they send the wrong signals. So why is this happening, and how can we stop this increasing load of free radicals from damaged mitochondria? Well, there's 2 ways you can do it. So we have a solution. So don't despair. Mm-hmm. But the solution most people aren't aware of, although it's highly documented in science. So first, if you're getting damage from free radicals, the best thing is to reduce the free radicals. And how do you do that? By removing as many processed carbs as possible. Sugar, processed foods. You don't have to go keto, but you can if you want. Because low carb diets create fewer free radicals, but even better is intermittent fasting, long-term fasting, or algae. There are virtually no free radicals produced when you are doing fasting or when you take algae. So, and of course, algae gives you all the other nutrients that your mitochondria need to recover. So it's kind of like the twofer. It's the big tamale. So first one, reduce the free radicals being produced by changing your diet and getting rid of as much sugar and processed carbs as possible. Okay, option 2, we want to remove the free radicals. Oh, okay, you've probably heard of antioxidants, right? And people eat blueberries and vitamin E and vitamin C. Well, unfortunately, those antioxidants can't get into the mitochondria. Their mitochondria are the only cell in your body that have 2 membranes. It has that first lipid membrane that we mentioned earlier, but there is a second membrane. I'll tell you where it came from and why it's so important. And that inner membrane prevents virtually all antioxidants and drugs, by the way, from getting in there. The good news is there are a few that can get in there to stop the free radicals, and they are glutathione, superoxide dismutase, chlorophyll, and also melatonin. Now,
those sound familiar.
Yeah,
from something you said earlier.
Okay, so algae, and we have the lab test to prove it, have the highest concentration of superoxide dismutase, glutathione, and chlorophyll. Ta-da! Yeah. So now, and here's the other good news, sort of. When from the moment you are born, your body makes glutathione, superoxide dismutase, and also makes melatonin. And so you're protected from all this free radical damage from the moment you're born, but it stops making them after the age of 30. Huh? Like, and guess what? Guess when all the disease is starting to kick in? At the age of 30 and 40 and 50, because as you get older, as you get to 40 and 50, you have zero glutathione, literally zero, not probably zero, but as close to zero as possible. So now you're a sitting duck. You've also lived longer, so now you've accumulated more toxins, and at the same time, you don't have the protection from the free radicals that you used to. And this is where I get so happy to tell you the solution is spirulina, because it has all of the nutrients that can get into the antioxidants that can get into the mitochondria to stop the free radical damage and also help heal the mitochondria. And chlorella, which also has the highest chlorophyll, which can get in there and pull out the toxins. So that perfect storm that we're all experiencing after the age of 40, where we're all getting diagnosed with cancer and heart disease, and it's getting earlier and earlier, whether you have dementia or depression or digestive issues or breakouts in your skin, it's all comes from damaged mitochondria because they can't function properly when they're damaged and they're dying. It's so, but this is what I said, you've got the answer right in front of us. It's been here forever, except no one's explained it to you. So that's why I love algae so much, is because it offers everything that your mitochondria need to be saved and to regrow in a healthy way. And it's natural. It's from food, and at least. But here's the thing: that superoxide dismutase that I mentioned, it's an enzyme. And high heat kills all enzymes, including that one. And virtually all the other algae companies use high heat to dry their algae. So, it also kills high heat also kills the phycocyanin, which we haven't talked about yet, but we will. So you need to be sure. There's only two types of spirulina that I can endorse. One is frozen spirulina, because it has not been exposed to heat. So all the enzymes are intact, all the pigments are clean and working for you, but it's very expensive. It's very hard to find. It expires very quickly. It's very messy. You can't travel with it. So it's not the optimal solution. Maybe when you go to a health center like Hippocrates Center or the Gershon Institute, I know they both use frozen spirulina for their patients, and they're both considering ours for when the patients go home, because our spirulina is raw, just like the frozen spirulina. So all of our nutrients, all that glutathione, all of the superoxide dismutase, chlorophyll, all of those nutrients are active. And in everybody else's, they're basically dead. So you have to be careful. You're not going to get all the same benefits if you buy a less expensive algae, because almost everybody has used high heat to dry it, and you'll be shooting blanks.
Well, I also know, let's say, for example, that I can go to my health food store right down the street here, and they sell frozen spirulina. But how do I know where they're farming it? Like, is it organic? Yeah. Is it?
Yeah,
they're growing it in the bathtub. Like,
yeah, it's really dicey. You gotta. So that's why we do third-party lab tests here in the U.S. and why it's taken us years to get endorsements from doctors. We do have the USDA certified organic for the chlorella, and we have a brand called Vitality Bits, which is a blend of the two of them. Our algae is grown organically. The company that grows it for us in Taiwan, the spirulina, they just don't want to go through the headache of getting the USDA symbol, even though it is organic. We plan to grow it ourselves in America, but it'll probably be about 5 years before we can get to that point. And we will get the certified organic just to give people the
peace of mind.
Peace of mind. But I want to explain to you now why the mitochondria have that second inner wall that is impenetrable by almost all antioxidants, drugs, nothing. It's like the ICE unit. It's like lockdown. Nothing gets in there except all the nutrients that you can find in algae. So remember I mentioned at the very beginning that algae was the first life on Earth. It was a cyanobacteria, and it was what's called an anaerobic cell. That means it does best without oxygen. And when it started, there was no oxygen on Earth. It was just gas and water. There was no oxygen. So for whatever reason, this little anaerobic cell started growing. It generated ATP. And a byproduct of ATP, as I mentioned earlier, is oxygen, which causes free radicals. So it was releasing oxygen. So 1 billion years later, now there were aerobic cells growing that were bigger. This ultimately led to life on Earth, but they didn't generate ATP as well as the original anaerobic cell. So I tell people, I can imagine the conversation from the big cell to the little cells going something like this. Big cell says to little cell, hey, little guy, I see you're struggling now with all that oxygen on Earth. How about you come and join us? We'll protect you from the oxygen, and you can generate ATP for us because we aren't doing so well. And that's exactly what happened. Well, maybe not the conversation, but that's what happened. Evolutionarily, the original small single cell anaerobic cell got absorbed by the larger cell, but instead of the larger cell digesting it, the small cyanobacteria cell coexisted, and it became mitochondria. Cyanobacteria became your mitochondria. That's why there's a inner membrane in your mitochondria. It's left over from the days when it was by itself as a single cell anaerobic cell. When it got absorbed, it didn't give up that cell structure, the cell membrane. It just got a new one put around it. And this explains to me why everything in the algae is perfectly suited for your health of your mitochondria and for protecting your mitochondria and for getting into the mitochondria, because it came from the same place. They're like family. Algae, especially the spirulina, is like the key that fits into the lock that turns the door. And it's so historic, it's so evolutionary, it's so organic, it's so ancestral. You can't go any further back in history than cyanobacteria being the first life on Earth, and spirulina is a cyanobacteria. And you can't go any deeper into your own body to determine how to achieve health and how to protect yourself from disease than mitochondria. And it's no surprise to me that they came from the same place, that they are the same. It's crazy, right? And it's all documented in science. It's called endosymbiotic theory, this evolution of mitochondria from cyanobacteria. A woman who was a professor at MIT discovered this in the 60s. And she was ridiculed by her peers for a few years, but then they realized she was right. And so there you go. So it's just, algae, poor algae, it just is so unsexy that it's been out here. I tell people the benefits of algae are too simple to believe and too powerful not to. I'm going to say that again. Too simple to believe and too powerful not to. Right?
Absolutely.
You'll know in your heart, when you take algae, your body just knows exactly. It's like coming home. You can tell that this is the real deal. It's not a fad. I mean, something that's been around for 4 billion years, certainly not a fad. It's just not been explained very well or at all. And so that's what I take a lot of pride in, helping people and giving people something that's really clean and safe, good enough for your newborns, your children, your pets, your grandparents. There are zero interactions with spirulina. It doesn't matter whether you're a carnivore, paleo, vegan, low carb, low cal, diabetic, fits into everything. Chlorella, same thing, except it does pull out toxins. And if you have metals in your medications, you might just want to take it a couple of hours before or after a medication. By the way, anybody who's on chemotherapy, please take chlorella, take both of them. The spirulina will help you heal faster, and the chlorella will pull out excess chemo so you're not as sick. So take it the day after you have your treatment. And when you are facing a condition of any kind, health condition, please take double or triple. You should be taking at least 30 tablets a day. We have had customers email us to tell us their cancer went into remission, their Alzheimer's has been balanced out, their heart disease is stabilized. It's because all these issues are mitochondria issues. And so even with your brain, we just did our own clinical trial, and with a nonprofit group called the Gray Team, they tried to stop suicide rates of military veterans, which is as high as it's now 35 to 50% of American veterans are committing suicide. It's heartbreaking. Wow. So in this test, we just gave them a pouch of spirulina with 30 tablets for a week. That's for a month, every day. That's all we did. And we did an EEG scan of the brain before and an EEG scan of the brain after. And what we saw was the before. These are veterans who'd had health issues for 20 years. The blue shows there's no brain activity, all high inflammation, nothing going on. And after 30 days, the high colors, the yellow and the orange and the red, show brain activity. So brain activity was restored just from taking 30 and their heart rate variability. This person's heart rate variability increased 50%, went from 55 to 80. They did nothing else.
You said something very important that I want to repeat, because people have heard me speak ad nauseum about inflammation, and inflammation being the cause of disease. So yeah. You just basically showed that this is also an anti-inflammatory.
Oh, completely. Absolutely. It is the most anti-inflammatory thing that you can do for yourself, bar none. 99% of inflammation is in the mitochondria, and the inflammation is caused by the free radicals that are being released because of the damaged electron transport chain. And there's so if you can heal up the mitochondria, you're going to heal up the process of the electron transport chain and reduce the inflammation. So inflammation is where everything is where the rubber hits the road, but most of it is in the mitochondria.
Have you noticed, because if we're talking about decreasing inflammation, so there's all kinds of inflammation, obviously, and there's this type of inflammation that brings disease, but let's say someone with chronic back pain or something like that. Have people noticed a decrease in long-term pain? I'm just curious to know if that's something you...
Yeah, we haven't explored that, but back pain can be and in fact, I have back pain. It can be very structural.
I can help you with that, but we'll talk about that another time.
Yeah, I have scoliosis, for example. So some of my back pain is from scoliosis, which is a hereditary thing. Some back pain is because your muscles in the front of your legs are so tight that your psoas and your iliacus get so tight. So they're pulling out your muscles and your structure into the wrong ways, or very often you don't have the muscle strength. And so when you don't have the leg strength, your muscles in your back start to have to work harder to stabilize your core. So, and I can't help people build their core.
For sure not. And you've got to learn to breathe to do that the right way as well. So.
Yeah. I will tell you, though, that I did have some blood work recently because they were trying to figure out what my back pain was caused by, although that's when we found out I had scoliosis. I didn't ever know until that. But they thought maybe it was inflammation. And I eat so much algae, I'm thinking, how could I possibly have high inflammation? My inflammation level was so low, I barely made it on the chart. And so I can tell, and I was so relieved because I thought, man, I mean, this would really throw my testimonials out the door. But good old algae didn't let me down. I have zero inflammation. So my back pain is structural, which is hereditary, and we're trying to do different things. So you're the physical therapist, and I'm just the I know.
No, that's okay. I'll talk to you about it right at the end before we say goodbye.
I will tell you, though, that we've had people tell us that because we work with so many professional athletes, and they are very carefully monitored whenever they have an injury, and blood tests and doctors. So they have lots of documentation that they can share with us. So the few times we've had athletes reach out to us, they said their doctors couldn't believe how quickly they healed. So it doesn't matter whether it's a structural injury. We've had people with LASIK eye surgery that healed so fast that their physicians were just stunned. So and by the way, your retina does have very high concentration of mitochondria. Very often they're finding now that any time you get any eye diagnosis, it was a predictor of potential heart disease. I wish the ophthalmologist would be in touch with the cardiologist, because I even had a personal best friend growing up who had a diagnosis of eye disease. And 3 months later, when he was skiing, he had a heart attack and died on the spot. So just be aware. So the brain has the highest concentration. Your retina has almost as much as your brain. The women's eggs actually have the third highest, and then it's your heart. That's the hierarchy, because the highest concentration of mitochondria are where the highest energy needs are. Because remember, your mitochondria generate ATP. Takes a lot of energy to think. Your eye is constantly converting thought, colors and whatever into your brain for stimulus, and it takes a lot of energy to make a baby. And obviously, your heart requires a lot of energy to heal. So they're realizing all of these issues. Heart disease, brain issues are a mitochondrial function. In fact, I may have mentioned when we were first chatting, there's a great book that came out called Brain Energy by Dr. Chris Palmer. He's an MD, and he's also a professor at the psychiatry at the Harvard Medical School. And I know him because he's here in Boston. And his entire book is about how all brain disorders, post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, are all based on damaged mitochondria. And because I know spirulina heals the mitochondria, we're going to try to do some stuff together to help people. So
that's fantastic. I just did a 3-part episode on teenage mental health, where also the culmination was speaking with a functional psychiatrist from the United States, because I also fully believe that depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, they're symptoms, and you have to look at what's the root cause. And that's bottom line. What's inflammation is damaged mitochondria. So it makes perfect sense to me. And I think that's truly incredible. So let me ask you an interesting question. So how about over the past 3 years, do you feel that there was a protective benefit in, from preventing COVID? Or I'm just curious. I don't know if where you guys did studies, or that's just throwing out like a question from the crazy side. But
well, I get very nervous these days because I have a big mission to help people, and the last thing I want to do is get shot down by the FDA for saying something that's wrong. I've got a lot of opinions, So there's 2 things that will protect you in general from just about anything: your mitochondria and your immune system. Spirulina is your number one go-to for your mitochondria. And chlorella is your number one go-to for your immune system. And when you have a strong immune system, you can be exposed to any kind of virus or disease, but if you're strong, your immune system protects you. They have white blood cells, killer cells, T cells, and they're all made in your gut. So, but if you don't have the proper nutrients in your gut to make those T cells, you're kind of out of luck. And the analogy I give to people is like, hey, if you're going to have a dinner party, the first thing you have to do is go grocery shopping, because if you don't have any food to serve, there's no dinner party. So your immune system is waiting for you to give it a dinner party. You have to give it what it needs to be able to create these killer cells, T cells, white cells, to protect you. And so a lot of people that did get COVID and died from COVID already had a pre-existing condition, and their immune system was already shot. And many of them had already they were on drugs, and they were, in the hospital, so they weren't getting proper nutrition in the first place. So the COVID, by the way, enters your body through something called the ACE2 receptor cell, which predominantly is in your nose, your lungs, and your throat. That blue pigment called phycocyanin that's in spirulina, it has been proven to sit on top of the ACE2 receptor cell and prevent the virus from getting in. And proof of that it works is the University of Pittsburgh developed a COVID vaccine nose spray made from algae, from spirulina algae.
Wow.
Ta-da! So there's a lot of science around this stuff, but it just doesn't make any headlines. It's not eye candy. It does, or whatever the term is.
You can only find it on the alternative web.
Yeah. So two things: build your mitochondria, protect your mitochondria, build and protect your immune system. Spirulina builds your mitochondria. Chlorella builds your immune system. But those are your two superhuman powers. And those are your two superhuman super foods that will do it for you. And they're not a drug. They're not a pill. They're from Mother Nature, just like us. And we just have to be sure that you get it from a good source. By the way, you can come to us. Our website is
please.
energybits.com, ENERGYBITS. And we have a 20% discount code, Holly Health, all one word, gives you 20% off anything. And I just want to, before don't want anybody to have sticker shock. We sell them in canisters, which are really fun because they come with a bag and you can just shake the canister out. But the best value is the large bags. There's 1,000 tablets in a bag. There's the canister. And when you get a large bag is normally $130, but with your discount, it brings it down to $104. But what I want you to know is, I used that quote from NASA. Maybe I didn't tell you that NASA said 1 gram of algae has the same nutrition as 1,000 grams of vegetables. So I took the measurement, the weight of our bag, and determined one bag of our 1,000 algae tablets has the same nutrition as 551 pounds of vegetables. And if you were paying $3 a pound, which is what we do here in Boston, that would be $1,600 worth of nutrition. So when you're paying $100 and you took 10 a day, that's $1 a day, $1 a day to give yourself what I call nutritional insurance. I'd say you're worth it. So is your family. So are your children and your pets. So keep in mind, I'd say it's tiny but mighty, just like mitochondria. It will give you good value, and it will also save you time and money because you'll eat fewer groceries. You'll need fewer supplements. You get rid of your fish oil, the multivitamin, your CoQ10, your biotin, and it will give you back time because you won't have to be cooking all the time. If you're in between meetings, or you're traveling, you don't want to eat the crappy carbs. This is your answer. This is your go-to, and it's effortless. If you can swallow water, boom. You got what you need.
And I'll tell you, I am someone who cannot eat anything fish at all. Like I can't stand the taste. Like it literally makes me nauseous. And I chewed those spirulina pills and they don't taste like fish, I guess, because they're grown in a lake. So,
yes.
And I chewed them up. It wasn't delicious, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
And it was fun. It made my mouth turn blue-green. It was pretty.
Yeah. The green, the chlorella, does taste delicious. With my favorite is these salt and vinegar pistachio nuts, but you can mix them with anything, and they don't stick to your teeth because they're much drier. So try that.
I'm going to. I can't wait to get them. Believe me, we've got several people in this household that need them desperately, and so
yeah.
So let me ask you a question.
Okay.
What does spirituality mean to you?
Oh boy. Well, I consider myself a very spiritual person. And I think what it means to me is inner peace. So that there's, and that's really hard to achieve, because even when I started down this path, remember I was an MBA, I was doing international business, executive, blah, blah, blah. And after helping my sister, this little voice inside me said, you can do more. Like, you have to do more. And it's like, no, I don't want to. It's too much hard. I'm not trained. But it felt good. I felt at peace listening to my little voice. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to trust this little voice. I don't know where it came from, but, and it doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever, but it made me feel at peace. And so I can't tell you how glad I am that I listened to my little voice, because I am on my path. This is what I was put on earth for. Nobody can take the joy away from me that I get when I know I am helping people understand how to be healthy. When I can get, we're like in a puppy adoption agency. Every time somebody buys some of our algae, it's like, go out there and do good things for the world. So spirituality for me is not having to be anything but what you are. And that there's an essence of purity and honesty and clarity and empowerment without putting anybody down or putting you up or down. It's like swimming in the water. You're just buoyant. And that's how we're supposed to be. But we get so cluttered with expectations from our parents and our peers and the world and society and Instagram, and you lose yourself. And spirituality is finding yourself, and being grateful that you found it, and because it will never go away. It's your North Star, and it's in all of us. And I just invite people to turn out all the chaos, all the news, and just be with yourself, and be with nature even better with yourself. And you will find peace. I promise you will find peace. And I did. And I'm so grateful.
Well, I think it's great. And it's so apparent that you are passionate and knowledgeable. And, like several of the other people I've had on, most of them, who just want to change the world and just want to help people. And it's beautiful to see. And I really appreciate that you came on. And before we say goodbye, though, I just do want to ask, we've got your website, and obviously I'm going to link it. And where else can people find you? Instagram, TikTok?
Yeah, our Instagram. We have 2 Instagram handles, Energy Bits, and we also have the girly one, Beauty Bits, which is very fun and flirty. For those people who are watching the Barbie movie, that would be for you. And we have Facebook, Instagram, or Energy Bits. And if you prefer, we do sell on Amazon, if that's easier for you in America. We're not in other countries. But come and visit us, even if you don't want to buy anything. Just come to our energybits.com site, because we write a very comprehensive blog every month with lots of research and links. And then you can join our mailing list, and we send out an email every week with science and articles and stuff. So, but yeah, we're EnergyBits is .com is the main site, and again, that discount code Holly Health, and we'll send you a bunch of articles and things you can link to. We just want to educate people, because in the one final thing I would tell people is that algae isn't new. It just may be new to you. It's been used for centuries in other countries. And think about it. You didn't know about chia seed or matcha or kiwa or collagen powder or CBD until somebody, and these were things that have been used in other countries indigenously, again, for centuries. But somebody had to tell you about it. So we're telling you about algae, even though it's been here for 4 billion years, used safely for 60 years daily in Asia. But the rest of the world needs to enjoy these benefits too. So just go online and come to us and just learn about it, because it's going to change your world. Honestly, it will change your health. It will protect your health. And it's the safest, purest, easiest way to do it.
Yeah, and I can tell you guys, they do ship to Israel, because one of my friends already got it here. So I know they do ship internationally as well.
Yeah.
So,
and as I said, we are kosher certified. So
yeah, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you so much. I really appreciate your taking the time to speak to me.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just fascinating, and I can't wait to get my own, own to try. And
we'll try to get some to you.
To be on it too.
Yeah. Excellent.
Thank you so much. Hey, everyone. I am here today in person in my house with my brother, Rabbi Shlomo Ben Zeev, who is going to talk to us a little bit about what I discussed with Catherine from Energy Bits and give us a little information. And he actually has some interesting things to say about algae, and about where we might be able to actually find this in Torah. So I'm going to hand the floor over to you, Shlomo.
Okay. Well, when it comes to the topic of algae, there are several interesting things to say. I can't say that I've specifically found a source in the Torah that speaks about eating algae in order to promote health. However, there was one interesting thing that I do recall when I was writing I wrote this in my first book, that when the Torah describes creation, it makes an interesting point. It says on the third day, right, the second day, Hashem separated the waters below, the waters above, which we created the atmosphere. On the third day, Hashem separated the land mass from the earth, from the waters. And the Torah says that it was then told to create asafim, which are grasses, and etz, and types of trees, etz pri or sepri, right, trees that bear fruits, from which you can deduce that only when the landmass was created was there something that was created that was an actual source of vegetation, right? Asavim are translated as grasses or vegetation, and eitz is a tree, right? Forms of tree. These things exist on land. Technically, if you look into the ocean, there's no such thing in the ocean as something which is vegetation. Even algae, which many people think of as a vegetable, it really isn't. It's something between a living creature and a vegetable, but it's not a vegetable. It's not a living creature. It's very interesting to note that I remember when I was speaking to my students about this, they all asked me, no, that can't be true. And they took out their phones, they started looking, and they said, "Oh, Rabbi, you're right. There's no vegetation in the sea." But having said that, there's another interesting thing to note is that when Hashem created the fish, a special blessing was given to the fish. Right? It says, "Pruvu v'yishritzu v'yimalu hamayim mehem." Right? The water should be filled with them. And our sages of blessed memory asked the question, why do they get such a tremendous bracha that they should be so fruitful and multiplying? And the Torah, the answer that they give is because they're a primary source of food for people on the land. Right? Basically, things that grow in the sea are a primary source of food for humankind, and therefore they were given such a tremendous blessing so that it should constantly be a source of sustenance for people living on the land. Another interesting question, which was said on the matter, like I said, by the fish, they have a tremendous blessing. One of my soldiers, when I was working in the Nahal Haredi project as one of the rabbis, so one of the soldiers, I would go and visit them all the time, and I would give them Divrei Torah, and I'd speak to them, and try and help them to grow, even though they were wearing the army drabs. And one of the soldiers came out and he asked me, "Rabbi, could Adam Arishon, could he eat fish?" I mean, after all, the Torah says that he was supposed to eat from the fruits of the trees, and he wasn't allowed to kill animals in order to have sustenance. What about fish? So an interesting halacha is that even though animals, kosher animals such as cows, goats, sheep, giraffes, and anything else that is a kosher animal, right? Has split hooves, chooses its cut. In order to be able to eat it, it's not enough that it be a kosher animal. It has to be ritually slaughtered. It has to be slaughtered according to the way the Torah commands, and then it becomes mutter to eat. It becomes permissible to eat. Avian life, right? Birds as well. So certain types, most of them actually are kosher. And in order to eat them, you also have to do shechita. You have to do shechting. You have to slaughter it. But in order to eat fish, you don't have to slaughter them technically. So therefore, the question that he asked was, it's forbidden for men to kill an animal in order to eat it. Could he eat fish? So I said, I don't really know an absolute answer, right? I can't say that I have a source which says, yes, Adam was, taking out some salmon and smoking it. Smoked salmon is delicious, but not to my sister. But
surprised you didn't mention that, yeah.
But could he do that? Was that okay? So even though there was no source for that, I said, since the Torah gave them such a tremendous blessing, and the reason for the blessing was men are going to be using you as a primary source of food, it would make sense to say that would, that means it's okay, especially since it doesn't require to be slaughtered in order to eat. You take it out of the water as soon as it's dead. So there's no problem in eating it. Right? You can't eat anything that's live. You can eat something that's once it's dead. Regardless. Okay, getting off the topic. So even though the Torah doesn't say anything specifically about algae as a source of food, it certainly says that the sea is going to provide us with an abundance of food, and that was the reason for the tremendous blessing that was given to the sea. The Rambam in Hilchot Deot, right, the laws of outlook. That's the way I like to translate that. In the 4th chapter or the 5th chapter, I'm pretty sure it's the 4th chapter, I'm quoting from memory, says that if a person wants to make sure, he says, first of all, if a person is unhealthy, they can't really worship Hashem, they can't do avodas Hashem, they can't be a servant of God in the proper way. So in order to be a proper servant of God, you have to have to do what you need, what's necessary to ensure that you remain healthy. And he says the most important thing for a person to be wary of is his gut health. Right? The Rambam wrote this 950 years ago. And he said,
interesting, because only now are we talking about gut health. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, nowadays they're starting to call it the second brain.
Yeah, exactly.
The reality is that we spoke about it, with the folklore. Chazal put a lot of weight in folklore, and that they say that there's a reason why people used to say things like that. If your gut feeling,
right, exactly, yeah.
People would say that I have a feeling in my gut. You do use your gut and your heart for various things, and they're certainly affected by your emotions, right? They're the seat of your emotions. Anyway, getting off topic. Right. So the Rambam says that if you want to ensure that you have health, he says the most important thing to focus on is your gut health. And the way that he says to do that is to be very careful. I'm summarizing up, obviously, what he says. Anybody who wants to know specifics should look inside. But he says you have to eat the right things, and you have to eat them in the right way. And if you do this, he says, according to the way that I tell you, he says, I promise you that you'll be a healthy person, and you'll live to a ripe old age. Which the Rambam himself ironically didn't, and it wasn't because of was not because of his health regimen. I'm sure he was very fastidious. He was literally the greatest doctor of his time, and to this day, I think there's very few doctors that hold a candle to him. Very few doctors. I said, right? And the reality is that he was worked to death because he was the personal physician of the king of Alexandria. And therefore, he didn't have a choice in the matter, because when the king says hop, you say how high. Anyway, so ironically, he lived to the age of 56, but he would have lived to an old age had he not had the king sitting on his neck. In any case, so that's his opinion. He says, so obviously anything that's going to promote better gut health, so long as it is kosher, is obviously it's a good thing to ensure that that a person should take in order to ensure that they're getting what they need in order to become a healthy and happy person, so that they can live their life in the proper way.
Okay, well, I like it. It sounds good. And we'll see. Neil, my daughter, who's got some low iron, has been taking it for a few weeks now. We're going to retest her iron along with the other stuff she's doing, and hopefully we're going to see a nice rise. But I know I've been taking it, and I I like the pills.
Yeah.
I think they do. They kind of fill you up and give you some energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I think they're worth a try. I think they're worth a try for everyone.
Okay. Sounds great.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, Shlomo, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Great to see you, Darren.
You too.
Face to face.
Yeah, exactly. That's a treat. That's really a treat. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This podcast is for informational purposes only. Please seek guidance from a trusted healthcare professional. By listening to this podcast, you release Holy Health and any of our guests from all liability. I'd like to thank Joker Productions for editing this podcast.